The housing ladder. It's probably, especially, like I say, now for sort of someone my age, it's my birthday today. It's the 14th of March. I'm doing this today, so it's my birthday. So thank you very much. Um, but yes, it's probably one of the most infuriating things. Sort of, we have been told, sort of, growing up, that you get on the housing ladder and you sort of work your way up. Um, but of course, as we all know, life gets in the way, things happen, all kinds of different things happen to us. And it is the most infuriating thing that we are still, I think, stuck in this mindset of the housing ladder, that it is this almighty version of things. And we are just so, blinkered and blinded to it. Like, we're wearing our blinders to it. And that is all we can see. It's the housing ladder. When the reality is, we need to look beyond it. You know, the sort of the next Labour government, and of course, all governments talk about, changing, planning regulations, which is like 300,000 extra homes, I think a year, something like that. Which again, going to be very welcome. But you talk to experts, or you look at what experts are saying about that increase. Well, instantly, straight off the bat, according to many experts, that's only going to take 10% off housing prices. So that is a considerable, considerable problem, for, because it still doesn't, change housing prices dramatically. Yeah, housing prices lower 10%, but to be honest, if you look at housing prices, even if you lower, many house prices by about 10%, it's not the biggest, dramatic change. There needs to be some major form of change. But because we are so invested in this system of this is how it works, and oh well, your renting is only like, temporary. It's not anymore. 70% of people now permanently rent, whereas I think it was a couple of years ago, it used to be 30. It's a constant problem, that we are seeing, and because we're just so blind, it's really going to take someone, I think, coming forward, I think, into politics, into like one of the political parties, and I think seriously, really arguing that we need to break the political, like we need to just break the housing ladder, like as a concept, and really look at how we can do this. And bear in mind, there are a ton of different ideas out there. There are a lot of different ideas out there when people sort of talk about, sort of things we can do different, and how we can sort of change these. But if we stay on this trajectory, if we stay on this idea, if we stay, locked in this idea of looking at it as a, just this housing ladder, this is where we're going to bring some serious problems, serious economic problems to the UK on a massive level. And it's not just going to be affecting young people, it is going to be affecting old people as well. So we're going to go over to The Economist to have a look at one of their pieces they did. They did a really good piece arguing about, the housing ladder as an idea, as a concept, as a metaphor, at this point is completely broken. We need to sort of move away, and if we don't, we're going to be facing very, very big problems, not just for young people, their inability to be able to get on the housing ladder to begin with, but now for old people, and what the consequences they might face, because that is also going to have a big, big problem as well. So, just going to quickly jump onto this and read this section about like the consequences of what this is going to be, because this should shock a lot of people, and this should really be moving, politicians to really look at alternative answers, not just, building more houses, which again is going to be good, but is not the answer alone. We need to look at the renting sector, what we can do in that. And we've talked about maybe bringing in sort of rent controls, and I've argued before. Well, who gets to decide that? Is it a national level? Is it something you devolve to say, is it sort of England, Wales, Ireland, Scotland type of thing? Do you go to, well, if you've got a regional council like we've got the Sheffield City region, do you give it to that power to them, or do you give it down to your local councils? I think there's numerous arguments you can have for where that power should lie, but like I say, that's definitely a different conversation for another time. But as always, like I say, thank you very much to all the people who do help and support the channel. Like I say, you can buy me a birthday coffee down below at the Buy Me Coffee link, or there's the Patreon page. There's the YouTube membership. Thank you button as well. So yeah, thank you for everyone who again helps support the channel, even if you do just click like and share. And of course, as always, on with this. So, like I say, flicking over quickly to the Economist just to go through this because it just highlights the dangers and what is to come of this. So it starts off here. So Britain's policymakers struggle to recognize it. Therefore, but the nature of the British housing market has changed fundamentally. The private rental sector is no longer a waiting room for many people. It is the destination. This is what I was talking about earlier on. It is very, very bad that this is now just the destination that people end up with. That, oh, you go and rent, then you buy your house, and you sort of wait there until you can buy a house. But that's not the case anymore. So back in 2021, fewer than 1 in 10 Britons rented privately. Now 1 in 5 do. So as you can just see from that alone, that is a big jump, a big jump in this. So that has important implications for the housing policy. Rather than fretting about owner occupation, for example, a modern housing agenda would be much more concerned about professionalizing the rented sector. That's not a bad idea. That is not a bad idea at all. The British market is unusually fragmented. The typical landlord owns at least 2 or 3 properties, with the single largest institution has a market share of just 0.2%. Encouraging larger entities into the rental sector would make some sense, amongst other things. The removal of the ladder also has wider implications too. Take monetary policy. In the early 1990s, almost 45% of British households had a mortgage, compared with just 30% today. Again, that is a big shift from 45 to 30% of people who have or households that have mortgages. The mortgage market has conventionally been a major part of the transitional mechanism through which changes in the Bank of England base have been fed into the consumer behavior. In a world with a structurally smaller mortgage market, the more pain now has to be concentrated on a smaller number of households to get the same effect. So even on this, because we are obsessed with this idea, this now has implications on monetary policy and the economy as well. Because you are now basing, as was said now, 30% of people today. What if that trend continues? We went from 45 to 30%. What if that trend continues? What if this drops down to 25% of households have mortgages? I don't know. Maybe 30% is where it will settle. But again, that's still a very, very small number of people to sort of really be focusing a monetary policy on. So you can see now the wider implications of why we have to sort of break the housing ladder, not only as an idea, as a concept, as a metaphor, and just fundamentally just burn the ladder completely. So the other thing, and this is where it also gets really concerning, especially for old people. So even if you do own a house, this is where it gets even worse. So this will have probably future implications as well. So the changing shape of the housing market also now poses an unrepresented long-term fiscal risk for the government. The British welfare system has been built on the implicit assumption that pensioners will either have paid off their mortgages or own their own homes. And by the time they retire, they will be either living in subsidized social housing. In 2021, there were almost 1.2 million private sector tenants in England aged between 45 to 64. This is a rise of 70% a decade before. So again, isn't just a problem for young people trying to get on the housing ladder. Also going to be a problem people on the older end of the scale as well. This is going to become an increasing problem So once again, we need to look at long-term solutions. And again, building houses. Okay, great. Glad you're doing that, but we can't build our way out of this crisis. We have to look, as it keeps on coming up, we have to look at, at the renting sector and what we can do about it. And I would love to speak to someone uh, on ideas about how we can sort of change this and sort of look at this way. Um, so where were we? So decade before. So as they begin to retire over the coming decade, their incomes will fall, but their housing costs will not. So think about that. People who retire, incomes falling, but the housing costs are not. And if you factor that in with that 30% being focused on them, that's going to have big implications. The result will be a large rise in pensioner poverty and a large rise in the housing benefit bill as the government subsidizes their housing costs, or more probably, some combination of the two. So we now have to end up spending more on this. And again, this needs long-term solutions to these problems. If not, we're going to run into some severe problems down the line. And right now, it is young people complaining about not being able to get onto the housing ladder, or it's people on that ladder now complaining about the cost of their mortgage, etc. At the moment, it's not old people complaining about housing problems, but it will be sooner or later. We will get there, and we will get here, and it will be because we are obsessed with this idea of the housing ladder, that you rent as a waiting room to get onto the housing ladder. It's not the case anymore. As you said there, 1 in 5 Brits now rent. That's a substantial increase. So then we need to look at not only just building more houses, but we need to look at renting and all kinds of things and solutions that we can to sort of solve this problem. Because if we don't take this seriously now, I've always said we are in a housing crisis right now, but we are sleepwalking into a housing disaster of immense proportions. Immense proportions. And we are going to end up sleepwalking right into it if we do not seriously wake up to these future problems and start to look at long-term solutions and how we can do that. So, as always, let me think down below. Should we burn the ladder or something like that? I don't know, metaphors, etc. But as always, thank you very much for watching, and of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.